Hey, what's good? Peace, boxing world, boxing fans. It's a Bite Down Boxing live stream. I'm the host of the Bite Down Boxing podcast, editor-in-chief over at BiteDownBoxing.com, and just trying something new today. This is kind of a test. I'm getting ready to have, I'm going to try to open up my Skype line to get in some callers. If anybody wants to call in and speak on last night's monumental Claressa Shields versus Christina Hammer to become middleweight undisputed champion, and do a couple of things. So like I said, let me get set up real quick. I was trying to make sure, I want to make sure the chat works for anybody that might want to just strictly chat. But I will put the image up for the call-in number here in a minute. Hold on just a second. Nobody's in the chat just yet, or in the live stream just yet. Just want to make sure one thing works. Okay, so the live chat is going. Like I said, I'll put the call-in number in here if I see anybody come on, and we'll rock with that as well. Let me make sure this volume is working. There we go. So that's good too. You know, when you're a one-man show, this stuff is kind of nervous. You know, you got to make sure the links got posted to social media correctly. You got to make sure, you know, the information on screen and all the graphics are whatever, you know, are solid. So it's a lot. It's nerve-wracking, but you know, hopefully with each show and things continue to grow, you know, I have more confidence and know how to run everything with the back of my hand. I don't even know if this live chat, if this phone call thing is going to work just yet. I tried to do a test run by myself, but of course it worked. Latoris, what's good, bruh? Oh man, I was gonna ask you to call in real quick. I was getting ready to throw the call-in number. You got 5 minutes, man? You got 2 minutes where you could just dial this number and let me see if you pop up in the audio? You got a cell phone, so I'm assuming you can call in on the move if necessary. All right, it's gonna be on the screen right here. Let me see. Boom, right there for you. Give me a holler real quick, and let's see if I can get some callers in here. Because I've tried to say this before as a writer, as more so of a writer, and not really too tolerant of ignorance. I'm not the biggest dude on I'm really not the biggest dude in this live chat thing. It's really not my strong suit, but it's kind of necessary, so it is what it is. Getting ready to. You don't see it on the screen, bro? Let me see. You see it now? I'm gonna go ahead and put it in here real quick. Pause. It should be on the screen, but who knows? I hate to have this dead space on here for anybody else that'll check this out afterwards. But like I said, this is kind of a test episode. I wanted to make sure whether or not this call-in stuff was gonna work or not. So please bear with the brother. Get that running. So as soon as I get in this check with Latours and see, there we go. What's good, man? We might be in a new era. We might be in a new era. Yeah, we might be in a new era. I might be able to get the channel rocking. Appreciate it. I've been rocking with it or fooling around trying to get it up and running for a little while now, and so I keep teasing it every so often. But I heard you were on the move, man. But you wanna I didn't go into my intro or my little monologue that I had planned for the fight. But any thoughts on it, Claressa and Christina Hammer? Right. 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 That's what I tried to put out there on the piece that I did. The 3 reasons why I thought Claressa Shields would win this fight. I think I mentioned that in there. It's almost like that. You know, I'm always throwing some movie references and whatnot in my boxing talk, but I almost felt like it was a biker boy situation when he was like, "We out here doing tricks they ain't even thought about yet." I just feel like Claressa. I feel like Claressa is trying to do punch combinations and move. Look at her defense last night. It's no other. Yeah, it's not many other women out there that are even dropping their hands like that and trying to lure their opponents in so they can counter them and do what they want to do. And so, like I said, I just felt like it was a biker boys thing. Like we doing stoppies they can't even name. You know, she's just that good with it right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this was, like I said, this was part of the stuff that I was trying to speak on and bring to the public in my coverage. You know, quit trying to, because I saw some colleagues out here saying that Christina was more polished and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just like, man, y'all want it to be one way, but on fight night, it's gonna be another because Claressa, like you said, she's comfortable with this. All that talking and getting out of pocket and all of that. She's cool with all of that, and we didn't know. That's why when I had a chance to ask a question on the conference call, I asked Christina Hammer. You know, you're talking about trying to replicate what what's her name did, Hannah Gabriel's. Did you have the opportunity to bring anybody in camp that does anything that Claressa Shields to give you some confidence to execute that? At all. Now, Latoris, man, you stealing some of my thunder, man. That whole analogy right there was part of my was part of my stuff, man. But okay. Hey, whoever just checked in on the live stream, man, I am gonna take some calls. The phone number will be up on the screen in just a minute. I was gonna let Latoris Harrison get in here and cook a little bit before I moved on. So if you want to hang around and get in on this phone call and talk about it, I'll get you the number here in just a second. Latoris, man, you also rock on here on YouTube and in the podcast game and everything. So please take a second and tell people where they can find you, how they can find you, and what your platform is all about, please. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Hey, speak on the. Hey, I appreciate it, man, because it's praise such as yourself, as well as a brother like Junior the Truth, who was on the most recent podcast. It's dope, man, that you guys would rock with what I do and appreciate what I do, because I know I just don't think like everybody else, man, and sometimes I don't want to conform and do what everybody else is doing, man, and I don't want to get on here and be angry and mad about every damn thing. Like, life is too short for that, man. So I try to do what I try to do and just uplift the sport of boxing. But also, man, let people know where they can check out the Standing 8 Live show. Okay. Yeah, man. I don't and I'm thankful. I told you, man. Like, when I started doing this thing, man, I was all excited to meet different fighters and you know, one of the first 2 or 3 people I got to speak to was 3 or 4 division champion Adrian the Problem Broner, and it was great to do that. But I walked away from that experience knowing that I'm not having any allegiances to anybody, and I don't have, and you know, and I don't go out here and attack anybody like Broner, who has all of his obvious flaws and out of the ring issues and all of that. I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna help spread more ignorance about the dude. So when I see him now, I don't even try to talk to the brother. I just keep it moving. Right. Right. I appreciate that, man. And like I said, I don't get to check out the Standing 8 Live as much as I would like to. I don't get to check out all of the TCK, but I do keep an ear on a little bit of everything. I do respect the breakdown and the differences in an opinion of the three guys over there. You three guys on the Standing 8 Live. I do try to tune in and catch as much as I can. But like I said, I'm trying to write articles. I'm trying to get interviews. I'm trying to push my platform, man. And so I hate that I can't listen to everybody that I rock with and everybody that shows love. But I do, whether it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I do take some time to get back around to everybody and show some love. So I appreciate that. But yeah, man, go on and do your thing, man. I'm gonna get in here and cook a little bit more and break down this fight and talk my talk. And I'll holler at you later, man. Yep. Hey, so look, that was LaTorres Harrison of the Conceited Nobodies podcast and the Conceited Nobodies YouTube channel, the Standing 8 Live podcast, I believe. Damn, he just said it was. I think they do Tuesday night. I think it's Tuesday nights, but you can Google him or go to his channel and get all that information. Like I said, I am taking some calls, so. If you say something in the chat and want me to throw the number up there and you want to call in and cook on that on the Hammer Shields fight, or even Friday night's Vasyl Lomachenko, the top rank on ESPN Plus card, Zerto Ramirez, if you want to get at any of that, feel free to do so. Like I said, this is kind of a test show. I just wanted to make sure that the audio was working on the Skype when I do want to get calls in. So that's what that was all about. But let me get into this Claressa Shields. I really didn't go live last night because I told everybody, if I pat myself on the back, I tried to tell everybody what was going to happen beforehand. I really didn't need to see it to believe it. Based on everything that I had, seen in the past, the Christina Hammer fight against Tori Nelson, catching, I've seen 2 or 3 fights live with Claressa Shields, and of course I've watched them on Showtime Boxing as well. It was just a difference in, for me, like I mentioned, I don't even think the round by round boxing breakdown or prediction piece, I don't think it got out there. But my 3 reasons why Claressa Shields was gonna beat Christina Hammer, I think I summed it up pretty well, and most of that stuff came to fruition last night in the showdown. Before I get into the action of the fight, what I did want to say was, for some people out there that are criticizing, hating, trying to tear down Claressa Shields and dislike Claressa Shields. Anybody that's doing it on a personal level, as far as talking about the sister's looks, the sister's teeth, her personality, her body, her skin tone, and all of that. Like, that's the ultimate sucker stuff to me right there, period. I mean, anytime that a man has to resort, anytime that an individual, period. But I'm telling you, it's been dudes like Stephen A. Smith, Roland Martin, I believe. Anytime somebody doing this thing right here, anytime you go to criticizing either the person you're debating or the person that you're, giving your commentary on, when you have to resort to talking about the way that person is dressed, or you have to start cracking jokes on their physical qualities or attributes, you've already lost the battle. And then it's just, you're no longer, the rest of your opinion is just null and void to me, because it's just flat out, you're just a hater. That's all it is. So I don't even need to hang around and listen to anything that you say once you go off script and go down that road. I'm done with it. But the thing that kills me here with Claressa Shields, and I am taking some live calls, so if anybody gets in the chat and wants to call in a number, I'll throw it back up on the screen for you. But what I did want to say, anybody that's taking shots at this sister, and you're sitting here upset because she has the acronym GWOAT, greatest woman of all time. If you're sitting out here losing your mind over that, that's a you problem. That's your problem. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. And the thing is, we're going to sit here and criticize a young woman, a young athlete, a young person who came out of nothing, who came from nothing. And nobody cared nothing about this young woman. She just admitted, I don't know if that's the first time she said it publicly, but she just said she was raped at 5 years. I think I did read that before, that she was raped at 5 years old by a boyfriend of her mother. Something that's pretty common, that's becoming increasingly common out here in the real world. But nobody cared nothing about Shields. No help was coming to her. She probably was going to a school with limited resources, with some district up in the state of Michigan with poor test numbers, etc., etc., etc. She came from nothing. And she sat here, unlike most of us, who just sit here and respond to everything that's going on in the world and following all of this BS in the world and following behind what all these rappers are doing, following behind what all these cats on the YouTube channel are sitting here, all of the messaging that's being put out here. This is a young individual who tapped into herself and what was going on in her environment and started boxing and started believing in herself and decided that I'm putting all my eggs in this basket right here, and I'm gonna go out here and be somebody. I'm gonna change my situation. I'm gonna be. This is the ultimate betting on yourself. That's what Claressa Shields has done here, and it takes some discipline to. It takes sacrifice. It takes everything to sit here and say that I'm going to make a living in the business of boxing, the hurt business. So I have zero time to sit here now and listen to anybody that wants to criticize this young lady because she walks to the ring believing in her heart that she's the GWOAT, the greatest woman of all time. Like, who cares? How does that offend you? How does that offend you? She's saying what she believes about her. You don't see Showtime Boxing really saying that she's the GWOAT. Although the commentator team, they might have mentioned it last night or something. But this is what she says about herself. I make the joke at the end of some podcasts that I'm the best podcast host in my household at the end of some of my podcasts or some of my videos. I say I'm the best dude talking about boxing in my household. You know, it's just a joke. But I mean, when I go to hit record and go live on all this stuff, I do that because I believe I'm the best out here talking whatever I'm talking about, whatever it happens to be. Kevin Durant, the NBA, although I can't hold a candle to Damian Adams and all of his statistics. What's going on, bro? But I can't hold a candle to Damian Adams and all his analytics and statistics. all his football talk. I can't hold a candle to that brother. But I can do what I do, which is much different from what DA does. So feel free to check out The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Check out all of his content, his fight analysis, his sports analysis. He was covering the AAF. DA, man, if you want to call in, man, let me throw this number back up here for you. If you want to call in and talk about anything, we can do that. But yeah, and another thing is, any of this trash that Claressa Shields is talking, or that you deem is trash talk, if anybody is saying anything, if anybody has a problem with anything that she says, this is boxing. You can go get at her. Your favorite fighter can fight her. Your favorite fighter fought her last night. The people that I've been watching for the last year sit on these videos and in chat rooms and on forums and on Facebook and on Twitter and tell me how classic Christina Hammer's boxing style is, how her size is too much. And I'll tell you what, when they came out to tap gloves and listen to the pre-fight instructions, that size difference is very noticeable. And you heard that Claressa Shields gave she told John David Jackson. That's his name, Jackson? That don't sound right. But anyway, she told her coach that damn, she got a hell of a jab. You know, she said it. So that lets you know that despite Hammer not having a full toolbox, she was a very formidable opponent, and she can fight. She's solid. But like I tried to tell you in some of my pre-fight coverage, that one tool wasn't going to be enough. And that uppercut that she was talking about landing to get the knockdown, that wasn't going to happen. I tried to tell you that. But it's no problem, DA. Like I said, if you want to call in, man, jot the number down. Jack in the building. Jack, I don't even know if you watched the fight, but if you want to call in and say a quick word, feel free to do so. Y'all can jot that number down. I'm not going to keep the number up here the whole time because I can't see the chat. But I'm in here talking about Claressa Shields and Christina Hammer. If anybody wants to weigh in on Friday night's Top Rank action, the Lomachenko fight, and the Zurdo Ramirez destruction of Tommy Carpentry, you can feel free to talk about that. I have not watched the DAZN content just yet. I was up putting this live stream together, so I didn't get into that. But like I was saying, take this down real quick. Yeah, Christina Hammer had all the opportunity in the world to shut this young lady up and to just beat her and to defeat her. But it didn't happen. And I left my notes out in the other room because I was going to go through some of the round-by-round action of it. And, damn, that's critical. I don't have my notes. But anyway, I mean, if you saw the fight, what Latours, who was on here just about 10 minutes ago at the beginning of the live stream, he kind of stole my thunder because this was exactly like the Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia start, where going into that fight, what other women can challenge Shields? That's the thing right now, in my opinion, is and that's what I asked. I asked Shields on the recent podcast. I think the link is in the description. I asked her because I had a good feeling she was gonna win this fight, but trying to be, trying to maintain my neutrality. When I asked it, I said, "If you're able to get past Christina Hammer, what's next?" And she confidently told me, when I beat Christina Hammer. She kind of mentioned she didn't really have a plan per se, but the goal for her is to move down to super middleweight with the weight limit of 154. She's right there. She's undisputed now at 160. She said she wants to move down to 154 and fight Cecilia Brækhus, and I think that's a great goal. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in Claressa being able to get down to 154 personally, without a hell of a lot of sacrifice. I'm just not confident. I mean, I don't think, looking at her body, I mean, is there another 7 pounds or is there another 6 pounds to get out of the way? and still be healthy on fight night, I don't know if I really believe that. But I think that would be awesome for I don't think there's nothing bigger in women's boxing than if Cecilia Brækhus would accept that challenge and go up to 154 pounds and make that fight. Skill wise, I think that's a good matchup. I don't think Brækhus has a lot of power. So and then Kali Reis, I'm sorry, sat Brækhus down once in their fight back in November. I'm not gonna get into the dates. A year or so ago, but she sat. Kali Reis sat Cecilia Brækhus down and hurt her very badly a couple of rounds later. And while Brækhus got the victory by a wide unanimous decision, Larita Lattimore commented on the link you shared. Okay, so that's something else. I think that's a good one. While I'm rambling, another fight is she mentioned, Claressa mentioned the Savannah Marshall fight. That she'd be interested in going over to the UK to fight Savannah Marshall. I haven't seen a whole lot of Savannah Marshall, but from what I understand, she has a victory in the amateurs against Claressa Shields. So that's a pretty good, I think it's a way to sell that fight. It's a marketable fight. And I think for most of the women's fights, it's going to have to be some kind of unique selling point for the different platforms to get into making these fights and televising these fights. But that's all in all, that's pretty much what the issue is, in a nutshell. That's what the issue is for Claressa, is because she is up in the higher weights where there just aren't a lot of women. There are some women at super middleweight, notably Alicia Napoleon. I don't know if Napoleon wants that fight. I don't think she's called her out or anything. And I know Claressa. I talked to her a year and a half ago. I was able to get an interview with her, and she said that they had sent contracts to Napoleon. She mentioned about I think she said they'd even sent a contract to Kali Reis. I did ask Kali Reis, who was, like I said, she was on the show this week's podcast. She said she'll be looking to fight at welterweight at 147 or super welterweight at 154. And I asked her, would you take that fight with Claressa? If she is going to come down and try to meet Cecilia Brækhus and needs like a bridge fight, would you take that fight? And Kali Reis, she gave her answer. You can find that on the link that's in the description. You can check out the podcast and get her answer. But I think that would be an interesting fight, honestly. But I think that's just part of the problem. Like I said, there's some fighters out there. We already saw Claressa Shields and Franchon Cruz Dezern. I thought that was a hell of a first fight. I think that was the first fight for both of them. Maybe I want to say that was their debut. That was on the preliminary card of the Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev, the first fight. I thought they fought way too early. I was able to interview Franchon Cruz, and she kind of got on me. She kind of came at me because I mentioned that I thought they fought a little too soon, and that maybe that was a matchup that the promoters could have cooked a little bit and let those two ladies get out in the game, get their records going, and maybe with the action I saw, if that's what they were going to do in their first fight, could you imagine them meeting each other after 5 or 6 fights and started getting that seasoning on them and improving their skill? But, it didn't happen like that. But, yeah, I think now that we had this night, this moment, I think we have to see what other women want to do to be great and, do it, and start trying to make these matchups. I don't think it would be any problem for Claressa Shields to accept a fight with Alicia Napoleon at super middleweight. I don't think she wouldn't necessarily have to go all the way up to 168 to make that. She could come in 2 or 3 pounds below that and just make the fight. But I think Napoleon and her people would have to push for that fight to be made. And I think that would be good. That would do good. That would do good business, I believe, in New York. where Napoleon is based. Other than that, I think for a big matchup, for it to be the bright lights and to get all of the machinery behind it, I believe that she has to go down, and that Cecilia Brækhus needs to would have to accept that challenge and go on up to 154 and maybe get out of her comfort zone a little bit. And I think she, Brækhus has to be realistic that being undisputed and having this reign that she's had as long as she's had, holding all of these belts, being one of the last boxing telecasts on HBO, all of that's good, but we don't know much about none of that, with the exception of seeing her getting dropped by Kali Reis when she came back for the last fight on HBO before HBO exited the game. Her opponent was not one, I don't even remember her name, but that was not a fight that was emblematic of an undisputed champion that's trying to advance the women's game, which is part of her responsibility. If you're an undisputed champion and you're the first lady of boxing, Like you have a responsibility, you have an obligation, a duty to help advance the game. And I think fighting someone such as Claressa Shields is part of that. It's part of that. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So I think I would love to hear Cecilia Brækhus come out and do something to help advance the women's game. Getting into this fight though, man, like I said, I left my notes in the other room. It's like 20 steps away. Just like the Spence fight. Just like the start of the Spence fight, everybody thought that Spence would come out and go wild and walk Mikey down, stalk him, and unleash the body attack, and just be free swinging and rush to try to get the knockout. And Spence came out and laid back, stayed outside, kind of settled in front of Mikey, just circling him and looking to counter and looking to jab smartly and to attack smartly. And nobody expected that. And I think when the opening moments of Shields and Christina Hammer, we saw the same thing, that Shields didn't come out pressing the action. She didn't come out free swinging. She had said in the lead up that she planned on cutting the ring off and making Christina Hammer uncomfortable and kind of pushing the pace, and she didn't do that to start. I was going to ask somebody, like, where was everybody with the first round? I marked it down as a swing round for myself. I really wasn't quite sure who I would have given that one to. I was kind of shocked that I think all three of the Showtime commentators, all three of them gave the round to Christina Hammer. I was kind of on the fence because in a few of the opening rounds, the first three rounds, I felt like Shields was landing a more effective shot, and she was doing, her ring generalship was a little bit better, but Hammer's jab was so active at different times. So I'm not a professional judge, so I'm not trying to push that my scorecard was right, but I was kind of waiting to see where people were on that opening round. And I'm even going to say it, I don't know if, for me, honestly, 98-92, I really don't know if it was that wide. I don't know if it was really that wide of a fight. Claressa really didn't get inside a whole lot and mix it up inside and do kind of what I attacked the way that I kind of thought she was going to attack. And I thought that was my criticism of Sean Porter against you guys. I felt like a shorter arm fighter standing outside trying to counter all night just isn't the ideal way for a shorter opponent to beat a taller opponent. So I felt like Shields was catching her with some of her counters from outside, but I didn't know if it was really going to be enough. And to me, it was a little bit of a difficult fight to score and to score and kind of make a decision from home. Sometimes I just couldn't tell if some of those shots were landing clearly where, the action was from the outside. So that was kind of where I struggled with it a little bit. But I think once we got past round 5, I definitely think that Shields started doing what she wanted to. And Hammer, I thought, was throwing the jab out there a lot and flicking the jab, but she really wasn't landing. She really wasn't throwing it with a lot of conviction. She was throwing it on the move. Damn, Tiger Woods did it. Okay. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it. So we know that Tiger is now going to dominate the sports world for the next 72 hours. Maybe even the whole week. That's pretty good. I'm not a big fan of Eldrick per se, but it is a great comeback story. So that's interesting. If I just read that ESPN update clearly that Tiger Woods wins the Masters. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. So yeah, I just felt like I said, going into the second end of the fight, obviously there in the 7th and 8th round, you saw that Hammer, when she got rushed, which was what I expected Claressa to do more earlier in the fight, but when she got rushed, she she was turning to the side, nearly giving up her back, which I believe is grounds for the fight to be stopped. But she clearly was turning away from the action, and I felt like in that particular moment, if Claressa would have been a little bit more patient and thought things through, and if she would have went to the body and brought Hammer's hands down, brought her guard down to protect her body, it might have opened up everything above the neck, and she could have got that solid, that highlight reel shot to possibly get the knockout. But I felt like she just kept headhunting in those moments, and just based on where Hammer's hands were, naturally she wasn't able to get a clear shot into the head or to the face, and that's why she didn't get the stoppage. But Kali Reis was on the show, like I said again, like I'm plugging the podcast link that's out there in the description. But Kali actually dropped Hammer. But I think it was ruled a slip or something. She didn't get scored for the knockdown. But she said repeatedly that Hammer was a little chinny and didn't like, to get hit. So we saw that. But like I said, I really wanted Shields. And that's one thing I was surprised of too, is Shields really didn't get a whole lot of different angles and entering the pocket. And even once she did get in, the few times that I felt like she really established herself inside, she didn't really get the different angles to really get the clean shots upstairs and really hurt Hammer and really get to the knockout. I felt, and I'm saying this because I really felt like it was there for the taking. And I felt like also it would have been the perfect way for this monumental women's fight to really culminate, in a real knockout. So I think, it was a little anticlimactic in that regard. Sparkle Lee, the referee in last night's fight, she was a little, in my opinion, off in the early part of the fight. I thought she was breaking them up a little too soon. Obviously, she didn't. I don't think she really mishandled the moment when Hammer's mouth guard came out. It is at the referee's discretion, and they need to have a clear break in action. And a break in action is not one of the fighters pointing at the mouth guard. It needs to be a natural break in action for the referee to step in and make that happen. But it is what it is. But again, like I said, I felt like that would have been the perfect moment, is if she could have got the knockout and got the stoppage. And I feel like that would have really silenced some of her haters altogether who complain about the women's game needing that third minute. The women, there's no power. Claressa doesn't have any power. I really felt like the knockout could have silenced all of that. And so I really wish she would have, like I said, taken her time, went to the body, and dropped that guard and really executed a solid, a real, undisputable or indisputable knockout. But we didn't get that. But anyway, like I said, I really wanted to just jump on here, recap the fight. Oh, and before I do go, heavyweight Jermaine Franklin. Let's start at the opener. What's his name? Slick Nick Kisner. That man did not want to fight. That man did not want to be in that ring in that particular moment. One thing that's pissing me off with the heavyweights, man, they continue some of these fringe guys, and some of the guys that the opponents that are being selected show up to work looking ready to work. They mentioned that the guy showed up like 15 to 18 pounds heavier than his last fight. Like I said, boxing, obviously, these guys are fighting with their shirts off, and the guy just came in the ring looking pretty bad, in my opinion. And Otto Wallin, he didn't get to do a whole lot. This clash. I mean, when a heavyweight guy is sitting here telling the referee, I can't see, and visibly letting us know that it was bothering him. Again, I mean, fighter safety first, no doubt, fighter safety first. But most fighters, the majority of fighters weather through that moment and at least get back to the corner to give your corner a chance to get you together. And I just felt like he could have been a little more crafty in getting back to his corner, giving his most times the corner, when the doctor visits the corner, most times the corner is telling the doctor, don't even come over here. We got it. He's okay. He can see. He's good. And then you go out there, he could have went out there in the next round and gave it a shot and then just said that he couldn't see. But he was lobbying for the fight to be stopped, essentially. He was lobbying for them to stop it and get him out of there. But then he tried to come back and say, and look disappointed that the fight was being stopped. So I just feel like, with a guy like Otto Wallin, somebody trying to really prove and establish himself as a contender, you effing off this man's time and this man's situation. And shame on that dude for that, man. That's pitiful. Like I said, this guy needed this moment to elevate. He's a guy, what was he, 22-0 or 20-0? He's a guy ready to elevate himself into that next rung of guys, that are right there at the contender level, and here you are not wanting to fight in a very highly publicized event. So that was bad. That was horrible. But moving on to Mr. Jermaine Franklin of I believe Saginaw, Michigan, and Rydell Booker. Actually, funny thing is, ironically, I had a chance to catch Franklin here in Cincinnati, Ohio, at a club show a couple years ago. And now, a couple years later, to hear him as an emerging heavyweight prospect, just seeing from, remembering him in action that night, which I think he got a stoppage that night in Cincinnati. But seeing him now on this stage, again, he takes off his t-shirt and comes out for the instructions, and I'm looking at him physically. And I know I just said something about talking about Claressa Shields, about her on a personal level. So maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit. But I'm just saying, I sit here and watch them take his shirt off, and they mention it on the show that he probably should be 15 to 18 pounds lighter. And he also, once he started doing some of his heavier, going to shoot some of his heavier shots, in my opinion, he was telegraphing everything, and he just wasn't explosive because he had extra weight on him. And again, take these opportunities serious. I mean, you at the top of the division, you have Deontay, who's coming in at 212, 215. Maybe 220, a year or so ago. But he's in good shape. and can move around and has, a decent amount of agility. Anthony Joshua obviously is a guy who takes a lot of pride in his fitness. I just don't know how, I don't know how some of these guys with this F.A. Ajagba is an emerging heavyweight who's in shape. There's a couple other guys out there that come in the ring looking pretty decent for heavyweights. And I just don't know how you're going to come into the ring against some of these guys, just like Jarrell Miller, who is able to punch, for a good punch consistently for a good 8 to 10 rounds that we know of. But it'll be interesting to see what weight he comes in to this Miller fight on this fight with Joshua on June the 1st, whether he goes with his 300, which is supposed to be his comfort level, versus coming down and maybe being around 285, 275 or something. We'll see. But like I said, for Jermaine Franklin, man, to come into this fight the other night and in that level of shape against a guy like Rydell Booker, who had some extra weight on him himself, that was a little disappointing. And especially to hear, I read some of the art. I had some of the press releases of Jermaine Franklin. They had some time to show his with the early fight, the fight ending early between Valen and Kisner. They had a chance to show his the backstory piece on Jermaine Franklin, and yeah, man, I just I wasn't impressed with him talking about what other heavyweights, the other guys who are hustling to get ahead and who are elevating themselves in the rankings and on the cusp of either being in contention or fighting, for eliminator bouts and stuff. I don't really respect you calling those guys out, and then you show up to work not looking impressive. And obviously, I felt like through the first 3 to 4 rounds, that left hook, that left counter, and even the leaping left hook that Rydell Booker was able to get off repeatedly, that shouldn't have been happening. And then also, I wasn't impressed with Franklin's. I really wasn't impressed with his power. Like I said, when I caught him in Cincinnati, it took him some time to knock out the fighter he was facing that night. So I think, not being a truly above average or exceptional puncher, he's going to be a guy that has to rely more on his boxing ability. And last night, he just didn't show us that sharpness. Booker was able to stand in the pocket or within range consistently and avoid being hit with anything really flush. So that was eye-catching for me. But like I said, he is a young guy. He's been doing all of the talking and selling and promoting himself. And maybe he thought stuff was sweet, and he came in a little underprepared. Maybe he didn't, with both of those guys being from the Mitten State, with him being from Saginaw and Booker being from Detroit, I'm sure there had to be some level of familiarity between those two guys, and maybe he felt like he could come in and do whatever he wanted to do, how he did it. But like I said, I don't think it was I just didn't think it was a great outing. But like I said, Booker can fight. He can flat out fight. And it's amazing, with positioning, managing his range, with under his understanding of the game, his savviness in the ring. He can stand in front of a guy like Franklin and avoid taking the big shots for most of the rounds. And like I said, every time Franklin went to do something big, he was turning his shoulders like this and then coming. People, the better fighters can see that a mile away. Some stuff is going to have to come from right within here and not, and all of that. Same way that Deontay Wilder was swinging against Tyson Fury back in December. You just can't turn your whole upper body, especially going back to that right side, loading up on that right hand. Your better heavyweights are just not going to be at the end of that punch once you come back with it. You're going to have to do something differently. So, like I said, there's opportunity for Franklin and his team to look at this It is a good sign. It is a good sign to overcome some adversity and to get that W and avoid being knocked all the way back to the end of the line. It is great for that, but it just makes me question your professionalism, you know. And when you're talking about elevating yourself or cutting in line in front of Konoski, disregarding Dominic Brazil and what he's done and how he's taken his lumps and bounced back from them, we'll sit here and saying I see the flaws and the issues with all of these guys. You're talking quite a bit, and like I said, that when I hear you talking that, I'm gonna tune in and pay attention a little bit more to see what you're really about. I mean, if you see all of this, then I want to see you execute. I want to see that intelligence, that ring IQ. I want to see you. I want to see you take out a guy who comes in the ring out of shape or you know, a little looking a little bad. I want to see you work these things out. You know, an 8-round fight should only take you 5 rounds. A 6-round fight should only take you 3 or 4 rounds. Like, I want to see that from you when you're talking that kind of game. And I just don't think we got that showing from Franklin. But like I said, he you know, he stays in the game and does his and keeps his name out there. Well, look, I bumped my gums for almost an hour now. I appreciate everybody that came into the chat. Like I said, I mainly wanted to come in and test out the call-in line so I could get some callers here and there. So you know, maybe write that number down, keep it near your wherever you know, keep it in your phone or something. And in the future, when I'm doing live streams, you know, I'll be making the call-in line. I'll be making that an option, you know, to enhance the show a little bit and chop up the action a little bit better. So with that said, like I said, please do step over to www.leftjaballnightboxing.com. Check out the Bite Down Boxing podcast or the Bite Down Boxing with R.L. Woodson podcast. That's out there. Check out the link for the latest podcast is in the description of this particular live stream. Please hit that like button. You know, become a subscriber to the channel. Things are only gonna get bigger and better and doper. So keep an eye out on all of that. I don't know if I'll do a live stream tonight recapping tonight's episodes of The Shy or Billions. I'll probably get to those later in the week. But you know, I do more than boxing over here. I'm doing entertainment and other sports. So I know people are probably enjoying NBA, the start of the second day of the NBA playoffs and whatnot. So we'll tackle it all in due time. Like I end all the podcasts, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.